This video is on the InDesign Lab 4, and we're going to talk about colors and gradients. Swatches, they're slightly different than Illustrator. And there's two different types of boxes in InDesign. So I'm going to create a new file. I'm going to use print. I'm going to change it to inches. There's your margins, and bleed you can add if you wish. That is not the lesson, so it's not important right now if you do or don't. All right, so we have our swatches palette, and again, if you don't see it, again, make sure your workspace has Essentials Classic. The monitors are just so small. It's nice to have all of this information right at the top and tucked away. And so you want to have that at Essentials Classic, or you can try one of the other ones. Essentials doesn't have anything at the top. And then if you need your swatches, they are down here. Where are they? Stroke property pages. Under color, you have color, which is goes hand in hand with swatches. And then you can also bring up your gradient palette. I think we talked about gradients a little bit in Illustrator. Both kind of work the same. Adding swatches works a little differently in InDesign. So just following along, you can have your properties out and you can modify through here as well. I'm just going to put that away. So you have your photo container here, and you can color those, both the background and by switching this, it's the stroke on it, and you can see here you can also quickly, again, this is why it's helpful to have this, you can see that the stroke is applied a little bit easier like that. You also have so this container you can put a photo in there, and if it's a black and white grayscale TIFF, you can colorize the image as well, and I demonstrated that previously. This is just a rectangle, okay, and these are just shapes. They do not hold photos or graphics, so you can colorize these as well. You can do all different things. So these are CMYK builds, as you see here, because the file is, the color mode is CMYK. And you can see that, where is it? Where when you set up the file, if you do print, it'll come up CMYK. If you click on the hamburger, you can do a new color swatch and tint swatch. So this is where it's different from Illustrator, where you can just dial in any color and then drag it into your palette. You cannot do that here. You have to create a tint swatch, and you can create a gradient swatch. So if you click on the new color swatch, you want it to say process and CMYK, and you can see you can go to RGB, you can do all these other ones. Now, the reason this list exists is because these are standardized color paint mixes that the printing industry uses. They are not the most common one, which is Pantone matching system. 2 years ago, Pantone and Adobe no longer agreed to have the Pantone numbers accessible in Adobe without paying a fee. So they disappeared from the list. And what it is these are books. If we go to focal tone, these are all standardized colors. No one uses these. So there, and you wouldn't use it in process. You would go to spot color, which is where it's a solid color. CMYK is the mix of these 4 colors to make a wide range of colors. Spot color means it's just that color. It's just brown, and you can do shades of brown, 10%, 100%. You can do shades of any of these colors, and when you click on it, it adds it to the list here. So that's how you add to the list. You have to physically add it. You don't just drag it. But these are not usable, so do not use them. There is a way to add Pantone. Let's say you're working for a corporation and they have red 185 is their Pantone number. So that means that anything that's printed 5 years ago, 5 years in the future, in China, in California, in Pittsburgh, that red 185 is a very special mix of paint that will match no matter where and when you get that printed. So what the printer needs is that number to mix up the paint or have that paint can. So there is a way to add Pantone. You would go to Other Library, and I have this, it's a library of Pantone numbered files. It is named Simpletone after the man who pirated this. So when you add these, so they're exactly the same as Pantone, which is the number they need, and it's the same shade. It's just called Simpletone because it's pirated. But at this point, until they make an agreement, this is how you can easily add the Pantone numbers. So you don't want to visually match, and you don't want to guess, and you don't want any sort of other formula, because CMYK dulls the colors down, because these are bright solid colors that you don't want to have mixed up from other things. So that's what you can do. I can upload the this free tone. What you do is I just keep it on my desktop, and it works in Illustrator as well. If that's something you need, email me and I can give you that file. And then as I use it, not every job needs a Pantone. I just add that library, and it becomes like a separate palette. Or in this case, it's in that add menu. In Illustrator, it becomes a separate palette that you can pick from, and then it shows up in your swatches list. So that's a bit of a side note from here. We're just talking CMYK, and then there's other ways you can, let's tint this, and you can see this is the tint, and you can see it's like a pink, and you would then have to, undo. Okay, skip tour. So if I added that, you would then have to do new color swatch and, have that tinted in here. So you can, it's not easily added like you can in Illustrator. You can't just drag it. You can see it won't let me. So you can also see all your swatches. You can group them. If, let's say, you had your corporate colors, you can add this way. So you can click on it and add it, and that's helpful. You can see here, but it's not as easy as Illustrator. You can also just mix up your own colors. So let's do color swatch, and you can just dial in whatever color you think you'd like from the CMYK. And of course, you can just play around with that. And you may have some numbers, corporate numbers, that say you're doing a CMYK only 4-color brochure. The corporate color breakdown for CMYK is this mix. And you could type this in. You can just type that in for 54, or you can dial it in. Okay, so let's just add that color. And you can see the new color swatch there. And you would double click to call it, corporate purple, so that you know that that is something special, that it's not just an unnamed color. You can do a tint swatch. So let's see. You can tint it here. So I had that selected, and I can add that as a corporate purple 36. So you do have to do it in kind of an odd way compared to Illustrator. You can also, let's say, tint it this way and then add the color. So there's a couple different ways to add the color. You can double click and change the name. So let's say you don't care what the breakdown is, and you just need to say, corporate yellow. the mix isn't as important. You can always double click it and see what that mix is. So those are some, basics about color swatches compared to Illustrator. And you can follow along here. Black is always the K is a symbol for black. I'm not quite sure how that came about. Just recognition, I think, more than the B. CMYK just has been what you do. And you can use the eyedropper tool here as well. So you can select the colors just like you would in Illustrator. So that's helpful. You can do that. And it can work on photos as well. All right. So something I use a lot, let's see, of course, all this shows up on the properties panel, and you can, change the stroke width, you can change the type of stroke right here. These show up if you do a much thicker line. So you can see that below here. That's good for like little ads or little call outs that you quickly want to do. They can become a little cheesy. So, just watch what you're doing with these. It can be nice, and it can be too much. And you can scale it. You can do all kinds of different things. So the property, again, is sort of like a dashboard, and that's helpful. So now we have some effects. I'm going to show you the effects using type. Let's make this bold and larger. Okay. Roboto, bold. All right, so here's your text box with a headline in it. And here's a picture box, and here's just a graphic box, a color box. And you can see up here, you have FX for effects. And if you click, you will see this drop down. So again, this is why this is very handy. You can also see the quick use, just a quick button, and you can add your drop shadow. That's too heavy. Unless you have a very dark background, that's too much. It's making it unreadable. So as you can see, this is checked. I can also do a bevel and emboss. Here, let's see what happens. Sometimes you just gotta see what's gonna happen. All right, and you can do the preview down here, and you can see you can add all of this stuff or none of it, just one. Inner shadow, and you can make some cool effects just with a couple clicks. But the drop shadow, I enjoy a great drop shadow. This is too heavy. I would not go beyond, I would keep it between 10 and 20. So to see it update, you just have to click somewhere else, and you can see that it's readable. And you can see that it's a little bit far from the letters. So I like to do a 2 or 3 as a starting point. And I always do an angle of 120. It just makes a nice top left to bottom right angle. And then the distance can be whatever you think. Maybe it needs to be further down. You can see it's not even touching it. Maybe it's a 2. So just over the years, I've experimented with this, and you can see how it changes. And the size of it, now it's so blurry you can't see it. This would be so extremely tight that you obscure what the headline actually is. So you do want some spread. You want it to be a little fuzzy. So, and again, the noise would be if there's if it's like not a smooth transition, and you can see how it's like kind of falling apart, like static. That might be the look you're looking for. So you can click all kinds of stuff. Knockout shadow, that means for printing purposes, they would have that shadow with nothing underneath. So remember, this ink is thin, and they would layer upon each other and maybe darken that shadow if there's a color underneath too much, or skew the color. So knocking out means there's going to be a white area for that shadow to sit on with no other background color underneath it. And that is something that is more print-based and not really something you need to worry about. So there you've got some effects on that. And again, you can go to the properties and you can see here, you can get through to these effects here and change this up. You can scale, you can type in. The lighter the background, the lighter your drop shadow generally should be. See how heavy that is? It looks a little unprofessional. So, but if you had a really dark background, that would only show up if it was much heavier. So keep those ideas in mind about drop shadows and some effects. For the assignment, you'll need to show me some effects, and you can find it in Object and Effects here. So the shortcuts are just so much easier.